presenters an opportunity to share their views with respect to what should happen in order for us to, to get the next billion of internet users connected. When we talk about the next billion, of course, we're not referring to Turks and Caicos, but we are referring here to the on the global level. And given that, for sure, ICANN and Internet Society, we are working the global level. ARIN is covering part of the region. So I think it's very good if we can have a discussion, especially what can be done in order for us to achieving one of those goals. And as you have seen, we have also Mr. Carlton Samuels, one of a very knowledgeable persons here in the Caribbean. And of course, we would like to hear his views as well. So presently, we do have a bit more than 3 billion of people connected to the internet. And as we may know, there are 7 billion people walking around on this globe. So the Internet Society and ICANN, ARIN, and also others, we are trying to get, let's say, people connected to the internet. There are a few challenges out there. For example, once we are connected, we would like to have people also um, to be securely connected. So it's not only about to be connected to the internet, but we would like them to be securely connected. So these are a few of the challenges that we are seeing nowadays. So let me start first with Raquel. And basically what I would like to do, I would like to highlight this session a bit on policy, a bit on development, and also on IP numbering. So, for example, ARIN, you guys are working more on IP numbering. So from that perspective, what do you think, I mean, once you get the opportunity to speak, what do you think should happen in order for us to get, let's say, the next billion of people connected to the internet? And of course, Raquel will be focusing more on the policy side. Jane, I would like to hear from you more from the development side. What do you think should happen? And from Albert, more from the, let's say, name side, what ICANN is doing. And Carlton Samuels, you can choose basically what you would like to focus more on. I think as a lecturer, basically that's the thing that you're accustomed to do, right? So we will be giving you the opportunity to just highlight the one that you think you can add more contribution to that one. So let's start with Raquel. From the policy side, what do you think should happen in order for us on the global level to get the next billion of people connected?
Thank you, Shernon. So what I'm bringing today is also setting the scene, but based on the experience we had last year with the IGF. First of all, like Jane was mentioning that when we think about connecting the next billion, we can also have some discussions if we're really talking about connecting the last billion and not the next. Because the next generation is already being connected, it are the digital natives. And we really need to bring on the unconnected. So how do we bring those that are not yet online? And to do that, you need to understand which are the issues and why they're not connected. So just to give this introduction on the IGF experience, based on bringing more outcome results to the IGF beyond the discussions, bringing concrete examples and concrete action items. They started a new track called Policy Options for Connecting the Next Billion. And this started early in 2015 with a call for contributions. So anyone could send written contributions to the IGF Secretariat. And it stays open from May to October 2015, so for a long time. They received over 80 contributions from different parts of the world, from regional, local IGFs also, but from most of the organizations involved with internet community. And from those contributions, they draft a document and put up for review in a review platform for public consultation. And from all the inputs, they presented a version during the IGF, the 10th IGF that took place in Brazil from 10 to 13 November. And they also received on-site inputs, and then they come out with a final document which is available at the IGF website, which is intgovforum.org. So just highlighting, they come out with 5 policies that should be put in place, or that could be 5, I would say more of issues and where policies should be tackling to make sure we bring the unconnected. And those are, first of all, deploying infrastructure, right? We need to make sure we have the right connectivity in place. And that goes through a wide range of issues. I would start saying one of the interesting data that was presented, now we see as a global trend a decrease of the connectivity. I mean, there was this high increase of internet access, this high growth of internet access. Now they became a little bit stable, and they're even decreasing. I mean, what is going on there? Are we finally get to the point where we got everyone connected? Certainly not, or we wouldn't have this discussion. So where is the gap and where we can go? It also comes to funding, to putting up the equipment and the technology available, cables, wireless, satellite, mobile. So it goes really broad. The second one is increasing usability. It's not only having the connectivity, but also once you are there, what you are going to do. Do you have the content that is relevant for the region? Do you have the in the language? I guess you are also lucky. English is one of the main languages in content in the internet, but Brazil, Portuguese, or Latin America in general with Spanish, you don't always have the content available. Imagine the other languages which have minor expression. So it is important. It's part of this relevance content and accessibility. There is over 1 billion people with some disability. And this is also a number. We are talking about billions here. So 1 billion people, and this came out with the Sustainable Development Goals. It's important. We need also to think about how we bring the disabled, it looks like offensive, but I mean, who has some impairment, how do we bring them online and make them use the internet? Enabling users also. This goes from bringing trust, restoring trust on the internet that you can use in a safe and you trust this mean, but also it comes to literacy, to know what you are doing. A recent study in Brazil, we usually think that lack of connectivity, if you don't have options to get connected, is the main issue. And what we discovered is the highest number for people not getting connected was not the lack of availability in the region, but the lack of awareness that that you need to be connected. And why they don't have this feeling? It's part of this users, enabling users and empowerment of the community. And fourth, not a surprise, affordability. I don't need to say much about it, but yeah, costs are important. You need to have affordable costs to get people connected. And the fifth one, and I'm not taking more time. I know I have more people here to comment, but enabling environment. Enabling environment is having the right policies in place, having, and by right policies, I mean those that allow the internet to grow, the open internet to be in place, and also to find the right balance within the market synergies. So bringing more competition, allow more user choice, and allow a better service. So with that, I set the ground, I think, for the panel.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raquel. Carlton, I would like, sorry for just informing you now, but I would like to hear your view from, let's say, the academic side, given that, so I'm sure you can just switch with respect to what you were going to say, because just focus a bit more on the academic side.
Sure. There are a couple of things. What is required is, if you, I don't know how many of you read the Internet World Stats, you would have seen for Caribbean especially, is a slew of the access. Those that are on the net now, it varies. It's the low end in Haiti, and it's the high end in the Cayman Islands, Barbados, and Jamaica. It runs about 50% of people on the net. So we have a long ways to go in it. What's interesting is where they are, the ones that are not connected. It's not as simple as you think. There's a different story to be told there, and there are different strategies that you have to do to enable that. But in any event, what you need are push-pull strategies with an enabled environment. I mean, Raquel spoke about that earlier on. So from the academic side, well, this is where the thought processes usually start, with policy development. And that's where we are engaging to assist national governments in looking at the things that we think will enable the environment. We're talking about government policy with simple things like how government procure technologies. We're talking about government policies with respect to e-government services, what kind of services that you make available online as a part of the push-pull strategy. We're talking to government about the legal framework, how we improve the legal framework. For example, most every Caribbean country is now looking at the second generation telecommunications law. Most of them are looking at having an omnibus ICT Act that takes care of all technologies and so on. And out of that is spawned the regulatory frameworks. And of course, most of us are going towards the single regulator concept. Some of the issues that come out of that is, well, if we want to improve access, and if we look at the groups that are now not with access, and those are the ones we're interested in, what do we do with them? So of course you have things like community access points that have been part of government policy in most of the region over the many years. So we are advocating a new role for community access points as anchors for community networks. The idea of community networks is that you have more people connected in a local community, but the community networks have access and interconnection rights to the main networks, the backbone networks. We are agitating for a different view of, say, universal access, how you measure that. The old regime where you were dependent on plain old telephone service with voice networks as the epitome of access has to go. So we now are talking about broadband access and how you move broadband into the environment. We are promoting public-private partnerships, and we are promoting frameworks in which you can engage in these partnerships and what they could look like, what are the governing mechanisms, those kinds of things. So that's from the academic side. The other areas we are, of course, looking at is sustainability of the networks and the companion You heard it talk about you don't want just access, but you want to have safe access. So again, there are issues with cybersecurity. The academics, we are leading the talk about cybersecurity there. For example, the University of the West Indies, we have very active faculty engaged with the government. We are literally volunteering to become involved in a lot of the policy setting apparatus of government, whether it is on the regulatory boards or chairing government sectors. I'm, for example, involved in several boards, but we in the government of Jamaica, we have a ICT steering committee that is looking at the whole of government, at how government interacts with technologies, especially telecommunications technologies and the internet. These are very important kind of roles that academia can play because of the knowledge that is resident in academia. One of the things that we also do probably better because we live and die by it is collaboration. Collaborative frameworks. You can't do research without collaboration these days, funny enough. And the only research that is really valuable is multidisciplinary research. And multidisciplinary research, engaging in multidisciplinary research, actually vests you with the kind of knowledge that you need to create these collaborative public-private partnerships. And we are importing a lot of what we learn from the research environment in academia into this public sphere through these public-private partnerships. I'll stop there.
So
James?
I'll frame this from a practical development perspective, and development of infrastructure and connectivity and communities to support it and capacity. So the prism we would look through is infrastructure connectivity, community building, capacity building, and the policies that support them. And I'm going to focus on something called Wireless for Community Development. It's an initiative that we've worked on with partners in Asia, and we're expanding to other regions. And Shernon is looking at some places to do that. But what it does is doesn't compete with the commercial wireless networks. So what it does do, you go to a community that doesn't have connectivity. It could be one of your islands that has little infrastructure. You do it, it's a train the trainer program where you help train local people to train each other, and kids can get involved. I keep thinking of youth because it's the future. That community network would be a wireless network that would help the surrounding community, even if it's small. What we've seen happen in some high mountain villages where no one thought there would be, they didn't think what it would do. It started more business. It started an internet cafe or just education online. So there are opportunities there where we help fund those projects, and that can take off in the different islands here potentially. And again, it could be a partnership with an organization like Digicel for transit. We're not going to ask for it free, but we'd work with you. And so I know Shernon's working in Haiti to try and do a network there. Think of how poor Haiti is, right? It's your only least developed country under the UN system designation of least developed countries. But there are very clever people that do metalworking. And in one village we know in Pakistan and Nepal, the metal workers went to the local junkyard, got some old cars and different pieces of metal, put together arrays. There's a lot of, you may not have as much of this in this country because the idea of the scrap metal, but what is it that you could do collectively with the internet community to help build that local connectivity? So there are options, yeah? And again, I think we often see in the UN or other places, they say we're connecting the next billion. And I jokingly have said the next trillion, but the important thing is, what is it you want to do in the country? Do you want to connect more people? Is your objective 5,000 more connected people? Is it the objective of making sure all the schools are wired? Is there a community that you want to target where you could put in a wireless project? And are there partners that can help? So that's it.
Mark?
So I'm going to take it. This is a great equalizer, really, when it comes down to it. Everybody has a cell phone, even my mom. Does your mom have a cell phone? Is it a smartphone? No? Mine isn't. She texts me constantly. Can you tell her to stop? And it's over iMessage, so it's using the internet. Like, can you tell her to stop? And it's over iMessage, so it's using the internet. Actually, in all seriousness, one of the things that I was thinking about this is important is everyone relates things to their own life. And for me, as I was growing up, one of the things I started doing when I was in high school, I started coding. And it went into college. In college, I started using Unix a lot. And using Unix, I learned TCP/IP, right? And I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I don't want to follow this OSI stack mumbo jumbo. I want to do TCP/IP because that's simpler and it's cheaper, right? And so that worked out pretty well. Now in today's society, who's teaching V6 to the masses? Who's teaching V6 in school? Who's teaching V6 in universities? And actually, that's one of the sort of big measurement sticks that I see is which universities are supporting V6. And it's kind of scary, the number that are not. And if that's our next generation of internet, that's where we kind of need to start. We have the great equalizer, and I'm getting a phone call right now, but it's more important to actually start looking at it from an educational perspective, making sure we have that V6 knowledge in-house, because those are the ones that are really going to impel it going forward.
Albert?
ICANN is a technical organization, and the technical work that we do through the IANA actually supports the operations of the internet. But the real question is, why do we do this? Do we just do it for the technology? And the answer, plain and simply, is no. We do it because of how we feel the technology can be leveraged for economic and social development. And that takes me back to when I was studying for, my professional accounting. And I had a study partner with me, and I would stop studying and try to configure that DOS box to connect to the University of Puerto Rico. And I would do this consistently night after night when I should have been doing my accounting work. And the reason why I was so driven is that I had a good why inside of me. Okay, I perhaps saw that if this thing actually worked, then it could improve communication, which would lead to other things, in economic and social development. So the tack that I would like to take with this is we have some idea that the next billion users are going to come from the developing world or from emerging economies. And I think, what we can do is give a good why, because we tend to move forward with things when we are motivated. Why do we study? We study not because it's nice and easy and we enjoy staying up late at night to study. It's because we have a why. We need to pass that exam. So we study even though it's difficult. The same with work. I mean, I would prefer to be at the beach, right, today, but no, I have to come to work. I need money. I have to pay my bills. I have to take care of my family. There's a why behind it. Why do we exercise? Because it's fun? No, sometimes, there are health issues which force us into the gym and force us to walk. So if we look at maybe one or two aspects, and I go back to one of the slides that I used yesterday, the digital economy has grown from 2010 to 2016 by approximately 10.8%. Now, in 2010, it was a total of 2.3.5 of that, 0.5 trillion was from developing countries, 1.7 trillion was from developed countries. And what we are seeing is that in both instances, there is growth on the side of the developed countries from 1.7 to 2.8 trillion, and developing countries from 0.5 to 1.4. But the more important and the more hard-hitting slide for me is one that shows across countries like India, China, Brazil, Mexico, South Africa, and Turkey, is that those who have a heavier usage of the internet have small and medium enterprises which grow by a larger factor. So those who use the internet on average, have average or light use, grow by 11%. Those who have heavy use grow by 18%. So I think from the perspective of growing an economy, which obviously would add some social benefit, we need to get this message across that it's important for these users, particularly from the developing countries, to come on board in appropriate usage of the internet, because these are what some of the benefits are actually going to be, rather than focusing on technology for technology's sake. And I'll just end with this sort of anecdote. I mean, I did some work and I went to a lawyer's place and he had a DOS computer running some version of WordStar, and I said to him, well, why are you using this old computer? Why are you using this old software? And it was all about the why. He said to me, well, you know what? My secretary can type up all of the documents. I get exactly what I want. So why should I change to anything new? It's always about the why. And I think if we have good motivation, then we'll end up where we need to.
I think I agree with you, Albert. That is why basically when, for example, the Internet Society started to talk about the wireless for community project, and when we were discussing possible country that we can execute this project, and I said immediately we need to focus on Haiti, because it's fine to come to Turks and Caicos, but I mean, if you would like to develop a new internet economy, I think Haiti is the right place to go, because Haiti is the poorest country in this whole Western Hemisphere. So I think by giving them this opportunity, we will enhance people's life I mean, not only to give them internet to Google and play games and things like that. We would like to see them earn some money out of the internet. We know that the internet is $1 billion industry. So if they can get just like a piece of that, I think we will be happy. So coming back on your question, Albert, this is the reason why right now we are focusing on Haiti with the wireless for community project. And I really do hope that with the locals there, we can make this like an example for the world. And with that, I would like to, we know, for example, that, of course, the internet, that's technology. If you look at the infrastructure level, you need to have infrastructure. And we know it's a challenge. There's no way in a short period of time you're going to connect. Okay, let's continue to use the word 1 billion people on fixed lines. So I think we should be focusing on more on mobile and wireless technologies, because that's the way that we should go to get in a very fast way the next billion of users connected. So I would like to hear your view on that with respect to technology. What do you think we should do, or focus on what kind of technologies do you think we should be focusing more to get this done? Carlton did ask first, and then Albert as well.
Shernon, definitely wireless technologies. There are a couple of things, three things that we would think of. There are alternate delivery modalities for wireless. I don't know how many of you have heard of the what I call high altitude platforms. Have you heard of them? They're balloons that you can tether somewhere in the stratosphere, and you can bounce the signal up and over. So you can leapfrog the terrain issue, and you have wide coverage for access, telecommunications access, and it is at 5G speeds using these high altitude platforms. It could be on a drone. Some are now looking at drone systems. A drone will go up there and it will stay anchored in running the same figure 8 path, and it will stay up there for 6 months. And you have balloons. I know you've heard of Facebook and several others have balloon type environments putting up in place. So you have those kinds of opportunities, and that could get you bandwidth where you'd never have before. at a very low cost than any terrestrial system that you could put in. Fiber or even microwave, it's a lot cheaper to do that, and they're easier to deploy. The problem, there's a corollary problem to that, and that is the spectrum and how the spectrum is managed. There is real need for some spectrum management reform, especially in areas where you have spectrum in countries at national boundaries, where you have spectrum bleeding into each other. You want to have more alignment of spectrum. So, for example, you need to have more spectrum, free spectrum for Wi-Fi, for example. That is necessary. I know most of you are familiar with the ISM bands. It's a spectrum, 2.4 gigs, and at that level. You need more wireless spectrum carved out of the spectrum. You need a spectrum that is amenable for uploading and download for the alternate platforms for internet access. Those things are going to happen with regulatory changes, because we have to look at coordinated regulatory changes for spectrum management. Those two things are absolutely critical. With respect to the other issues, and we're talking about the building blocks here. Albert is in one area. We're doing expansion of the domain name space, and that is going apace. 2 years ago, we had 25 top-level domains. Now we have how much, Albert? 1,200 or something, so? Around that. It's going to move up. We have the IP addressing with IPv6. Now you have almost an inexhaustible reservoir of addressing capabilities. So these things all come together. And the point I'm making here is you have to look at them in a coordinated fashion. They all kind of pitch up on each other. And so spectrum management and spectrum reform, the regulatory reform that will allow more access to spectrum for certain applications, Wi-Fi, for example, looking at alternate platforms and how you get those put up, looking at alternate financing models for access to internet. Even the community networks, which I've been a big fan and supporter. I've been pushing community networks for as long as 10 years ago, because we did one simple little one. I saw one in Suriname that was just remarkable. They were using car batteries to run a community network way out in the bush, and getting a link, a Wi-Fi 2.4 gig Wi-Fi link that was running 25 miles with a repeater to get out of there. I saw that for the first time, and I thought, hold on a minute. And they were standing there. They had a little hub, and they had 5, 6 devices connected to this little hub. That was a very crude community network. And that was where the idea came from. It didn't come out of the sky. I saw something working, and I thought, these people have something here. They've latched onto something. So the point I'm making is this. There is a slew of things that you can think of, and as you think of them, please understand how they are related to each other. They're co-related. And as you look at the policy perspective, as you look at the technology perspective, as you look at the role that governments can play, please remember this is coordinated action.
Thanks, Carlton. Albert?
Yeah. So again, when we look at the reality and we look at the facts, we realize that there are certain technologies, when put into the hands of individuals, can be put to some very creative usage. And my mind goes back to 2008 when we had the ICANN 31 meeting in New Delhi, and the minister came and he spoke about the proliferation of mobile phones in India. People who did not have a place to live had a mobile phone, and they were using those phones to coordinate transport, to run their businesses. And when they went into a sort of financing agency, the mobile phone, as Mark said, he knew I was talking about it, that's why he just walked in. But the mobile phone was the key platform for actually moving forward, where previously there was no opportunity to engage in any kind of commerce. And when you look at this very same study by the Boston Consulting Group, at the difference between those who use medium and light internet compared to the heavy users, and the impact on the growth of revenue in small and medium enterprises, you see the biggest shifts out of all of these countries, India, China, Brazil, Mexico, South Africa, and Turkey. You see the biggest variation from India. And that definitely would not be because of landlines or cables or anything like that. It has to be because of the use of mobile technologies. I remember when we used to worry about having landlines all over the house. I can't even remember when I gave up my landline. And I think many of you would agree that the amount of landlines is reducing. So in terms of connecting the next billion, I don't know if it's the whole billion that would be on mobile technologies, because we know that several companies are putting those balloons up. Google has balloons up in the stratosphere already. But in the short term, definitely we need to look very carefully at mobile.
And I would like to ask Jane, I recall in one of your previous sessions, you did mention free basics and .org. Although you didn't have the opportunity to highlight that, I mean, I know it's not the full internet that we're talking about, but in any case, can you elaborate a bit on that? And what do you think if there is a link with those kind of initiatives and our objectives, let's say, to connect more people to the internet?
So one thing I think that some regulators and ministries are worried about is, and not here, I just want to be clear, and not that I've seen in the Caribbean, but in other countries, with the power of companies coming in to almost become like a government with their technology and bringing it in, and versus the banks or others. But this isn't new, as we know. There have been public-private partnerships where companies have been excellent at coming in and providing that connectivity. And that's the social doing good side of work. Whether it's providing free Wi-Fi access to a school or more connectivity to the school, and talking to the government about a tax break, right? Why wouldn't you do that? I would. But on the free basics side, there was a great deal of misunderstanding about what it was in India, and this is where some of the conflict came. And we have an economist at the Internet Society who actually had seen one of the phones for Zimbabwe. The phone allowed multiple icons, multiple applications, and multiple access to the broader internet. It wasn't restricting access. So some people thought that the free basics was only about an icon for Facebook. The interesting thing about the program in India was that the carriers found that 50% of the individuals using free basics bought better packages on their wireless networks. So if you're a wireless provider, this was a good thing. And even if you're a wired provider, there's backhaul between mobile base stations. This isn't just magically running through the air, the interwebs, as we say. And so you do, as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, there's undersea cable access, but on land, you do have to have the wired connectivity, which is where some of the other projects are coming in. It's a municipal works project with companies. With Internet.org, that's a different situation, and they're looking at how to provide more access in different countries and partnering up with governments. And so the question is, if companies like Facebook are doing it, what are the local companies doing to partner up with government? So I would put it in that spin. Where are there partnerships that can be made here from a local perspective?
Okay, we know, for example, that the internet operational layer can be divided in 3 layers, as we did explain in our presentations. So we have been focusing now mostly on, let's say, the first layer, infrastructure, be it wired, wireless, that's not satellite communication. So let's move now to the next layer, which is, let's say, the domaining system layer there in between. What do you think can be done, mostly, let's say, on that particular layer to to get more people connected to the global internet. And you see where I'm heading, right? So, and then
I
I'll
see,
go to
I
the
see exactly
highest-
where you're heading.
Yes, okay.
And Carlton will see where I'm heading as well. And he touched on it. Okay, part of what takes place with these reviews and the work that happens at ICANN is to see the impact. So somebody from the community said that there should be a greater level of choice and competition with regard to domain names. Somebody, for example, in the community said that countries that don't use the Latin script, A to Z and 0 to 9, should be able to use the internet in their own languages. ICANN, facilitated a community, policy was developed, and there were projects which were implemented. So the way things work in ICANN is these are continuously reviewed to see the impact. And right now, you heard this morning that there are about 1,900 applications for new GTLDs. The whole idea was that, this should expand competition and choice so that new things start happening on the internet. And sometimes you create a technology and you really have no idea what a creative mind will take that technology and do with it. And this is what we're looking for. Some of the new GTLDs will fail, but many will succeed. And part of what is happening now in a phase that Carlton is participating in is reviewing this incremental improvement that has been made to the domain name system to see whether it had the kind of impact that it should have had, to hear from the community whether or not they felt that it can continue as it was before, or whether there are enhancements or whether there are things that should be taken out. And the hope is that we would have this continuous process of improving that layer to the benefit, again, of economic and social development. I don't know if Carlton wants to add anything about the reviews.
Yeah, thank you, Albert. But there are a couple of things I want to say about it. I am a member of the what we call Competition and Consumer Choice and Trust Review team. And the idea is that the domain name system, there's been expansion, and one of the levers for expansion was to improve consumer choice and competition. And our job is to see if that really happened. So there's 17 of us from all over the world globally. I'm from the Caribbean, and there are people from Africa and people from Europe and America and Australia and Asia on this review team. And we spend a lot of time looking at a lot of data. We meet face to face. We actually next week we'll be in Morocco looking at continuing the work. And essentially we are looking at how consumer trust and consumer choice and competition has evolved with this expansion of the domain name space. This is a place where my interest is what is happening in developing economies. My interaction with the internet, and I've been involved in the policy development process for probably 10 years now, is about economic and social development. The internet is that for me. It's not about the technology. It's about what you can do on it and to forward economic and social development. And this is where I think I'm making appeal to those of you who have that interest to participate in the domain name system policy development structures. There are lots of structures in ICANN that you can join and be a part of. Let me give you one example of what another issue. One of the things that we've been talking about since 2006 is the way that the market, the domain name market is developed and the domain name space is developed, where it appears that it leaves emerging economies as consumers rather than producers. We are consuming what is there for us. And really, the barrier to entry is one of the things we're concerned about. As you probably know, we've told you about this thing called a top-level domain, that the .com, .edu, and there are lots more now. And then there's the top-level domain for the country code, which is like LC for St. Lucia, and you know the one for your country. What is the one for Turks and Caicos?
TC.
TC, good. And just see if you're awake here. And one of the things that we were concerned about, those of us who were engaged at the time, was the ability for people like us from our part of the world to participate in the group. And in order to apply at the time for a top-level domain, you had to put up 185,000 United States dollars, among other things, and you had to show. Now, for those of us, to the people who thought about it, that is monkey money. But to those of us who do business in this region, that is 5 years profit, eh? Right? We are small. Our big business is a small business to those who think about it, right? So some of us were saying, well, you know, that doesn't leave any space for us, for our SMEs. When they talk about SMEs, it's in the SME layer that economic development is taking place. They weren't talking about our SMEs. They were talking about a totally different set of SMEs. So we thought we should do something about it. And we try to agitate. One of the things that you know working in these multi-stakeholder, you'd be surprised if you participate where you can find allies. People will help you advocate. Because believe it or not, there are other people, even if they live in North America and Europe, who support the ideas that you are prefacing. And they will support you. And we had good support, especially from some Canadians who were a friend of mine. We were in Mexico City and we started agitating for it. And we managed to get them to develop a working group that was going to look at this issue and see how we could assist in reducing the barrier for companies, from individuals, from our side of the world to get involved in the domaining space. We succeeded in the end in reducing that cost to 45,000 US dollars to get it. Still a lot, but from 185,000 we made some progress. And we also induced them to provide some other support, like support for defining systems, technical layer support, and so on. So a few good things came out of that. In the end, nobody qualified. And so what we had intended to see did not happen. But I'm telling you this to say this. It is the time for us to become more involved in these centers, these corridors, for our own benefit. And even if you think we're small, there is room for us. And there are folks there who will embrace our issues and help us to articulate them. And this is an appeal to you to understand that the internet and what happens in the internet is probably the best platform for collaborative engagement that you could ever find. And what remains is for us to take advantage and begin to participate. And Albert can tell you many ways of how you can participate in the policy development in the domain name space. I'll leave it to Albert.
Well, before you leave it to Albert, yes, I'm the moderator. Yes, before you leave it to Albert, maybe can you elaborate a bit on why we don't have any registrar here in the Caribbean?
Yeah, simply the barriers to entry. The requirements are quite stringent. And there's not just a financial requirement, there's also technical requirement and so on. And if you don't have any knowledge of doing technology, we come from technology backgrounds, and so we were doing some of these things long before we heard about ICANN. And that's probably give us a leg up on other people. But there are other people who are doing the same things that we used to do, that could come in and do the same thing. But primarily, the main reason is that there was lack of knowledge of how the main name system was configured. There was lack of knowledge in the region and in our part of the world about this, and there's a lot to learn. You know, what is a registry? What is a registrar? How are they configured? How are they contained with each other? That's a lot to learn. I can assure you, but you learn very quickly. And the other thing is that there was also the financial barrier to access it. But again, it's collective, collaborative action that will enable us to surmount some of these barriers. And I am telling you, we can surmount the barriers. I mean, I am involved not because I'm making any money out of it, but I really do believe that somebody has to show up and do the work. And until we can find others who we can pull in, I have to continue doing what I do. It's not paid work, by the way. It's not paid work. Not paid work. But if you are in knowledge work and you are into policy development and you want to be in a place where you can make some contribution to profound change at national and international levels, you must engage and participate. That's what I think.
So now we will give Albert the opportunity to speak.
Yeah, so I teach, like Carlton, and I started teaching Sunday school, but then later on I taught computers. And the biggest joy to a teacher is when you see the sparkle in the eye of the student, indicating that they understood what you were saying and they can take it to the next level. And this is why Carlton and others continue to work 70 hours a week, because we feel deep inside that this technology, if used appropriately, can make a positive change. In answer to Carlton's questions, where can you participate in ICANN? There is a space in ICANN for every type of stakeholder, and we saw some of those. Maybe we can start with government representatives and government policymakers. There is the Governmental Advisory Committee. If we look at end users who don't fit into the technical community, or definitely don't fit into the business community and are not sure where to go, there is a section in ICANN known as the At Large. And that pretty much covers any type of end user. And there is such an all-encompassing structure that At Large is actually broken down by the 5 regions, the 5 ICANN regions: Africa, Asia Pacific, North America, Latin America, and the Caribbean. Did I say all 5? Maybe I missed one. So as an end user who perhaps doesn't fit into maybe the security community, or maybe the RIR or technical community, or the business community, or maybe you don't work in government, there still is a place for you in ICANN. So the easiest thing for me to say at this point is that there's an ICANN meeting next week. It's taking place in Marrakesh, Morocco, and you can participate in it. Meetings, meetings, .icann.org. When you go to that website, you would either see the link for Marrakesh, or from the menu at the top, you'd see the calendar and the schedule of how the meetings take place. And it's an interactive schedule where if you see something that looks like you might be interested in it, when you click on there, you will see a list of the agenda, and there will be a link that allows you to participate when that session goes live. And the participation is this. There's some software that will get downloaded called Adobe Connect, and you can see the PowerPoints that the presenters are using. Sometimes you can see the video. Sometimes you can hear the audio. There is a chat box, just like your regular Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp, where you can type in a question. You can say, my name is this, and I'm from Turks and Caicos, and I would like to understand why X, Y, Z. And somebody in the room will take those remote participation questions and ask them on your behalf. If you feel that you just want to start listening to the discussion that's going on and start understanding what the issues are, you can do that. You can look, you can sit and look at everything without actually saying anything. But the most important thing is start participating. You listen, try to understand, ask questions. We are here to assist you on the ground. Everybody, was poking fun at me last night because I get home on the 5th of March. March? I don't even know what month we're in. I get home on the 5th of March. I swap my suitcases, and on the 6th of March, I fly out to Barbados. Why? Some of the end users in Barbados are running what we call a remote hub. In a room like this, they're getting a group of stakeholders together. They will connect using Adobe Connect, and they will be following the ICANN meeting. I'm going to have to get up 3 o'clock in the morning to go across and support them, answer their questions. You know, you might hear somebody walk into a room and say something like the CCNSO is considering a PDP on IDNs and they need to discuss it with the GAC and ESAC. So I need to be there to explain each one of those acronyms. And we have an acronym buster now on the ICANN website. But I'm sure you got some of those acronyms that I mentioned, because over the last 2 days, you know, you heard them, you have some idea. So Carlton is absolutely correct. Participation is the only way that we will be able to bring the value and the benefit of this important technology back home to our regions.
Can I add one thing? So off my Isaac hat on my former alumni from the ICANN fellowship program. So you can also participate physically. ICANN has a great program to bring fellows for the first time, and you can be recurrent fellow to those meetings. So they have 3 meetings a year. I participated in this program, and it's great. You have the morning meetings. You need to be there 7 a.m. But anyway, it's worth it. It's worth it. Be careful for what you ask. But so you learn a little bit about all the different stakeholder groups, and you can engage. If you're going on your own, by your company, by your government, you also have the support with the newcomers lounge and a kind of mentorship. So you are also not alone in this learning space. And I think there is a new program, the Next Gen program focusing on youth, but yeah, the younger ones. So yeah, by UN next year, I'm off. But anyway. But that's it. I mean, just to make this a small advertisement.
Okay.
And you know, everybody on this panel has been very modest, because yes, ICANN has a program like that to facilitate your participation, but ARIN has a similar program. ARIN has a similar program where, you know, they facilitate with airfare and accommodation, participation at their meetings. And of course, ISOC has definitely a program of supporting participation in their activities as well. Because the whole idea is that, you know, it's like eating your vegetables. The parent knows that the child should eat the vegetables, and the parent does everything to try to get the child to eat the vegetables. But until the child understands the importance and the value of eating those vegetables, you know, the child will play around with the food. So this is what we're trying to do here. We know how valuable the vegetables are to you, so we're trying to get you to eat your vegetables. Work with us.
Okay. Okay, I will never challenge nature. And so we need to bring this session to a close. But first, I would like to see or open the floor. Are there any questions, maybe 1 or 2, that you guys would like to ask to the panelists? No? Okay, so with that, I would like to give you then, each one of you. Yes, okay.
A remote question.
This is a remote question. Life TV. And the question goes, with the introduction of the pseudo-cyborg era, where humans are now trying to integrate various networking technologies as a part of their bodies, how prepared are we to deal with these challenges?
Okay, that's a good question. Who would like to take it?
So
Of course, Carlton, right?
So that's a good question. The impact of nanotechnologies and technologies at the nanoscale it has great potential for improving the human condition. That's my personal belief. But there are a lot of ethical considerations that have to be taken on board. It's definitely true that we are at the nanoscale now where we can have technologies that are so invasive or integrated so closely with human systems that we can't tell the difference between the one and the other. What we know that they extend human capabilities, seeing, hearing, uh, you name it, all of the things that we do as human beings can be extended with by this nanotechnologies and so on. But of course, the ethical issues keep arising. Let me give you one example now. We've been unraveling the genome, the human genome, for quite a while. And so we're at the point where we have mapped all of the genes, and we know, by and large, by probably 80% what they all do. And we also know something about the expression, that is to say, the phenotypic expression, what it looked like after it has gone through. And so we're now at the point where we can select characteristics for fetuses. The question is that something that we want to do? We can select now for eye color and various other things. Right now, that's available. But then there's an ethical question involved in that. So the point is, before the fact that the technology affords certain outcomes now leaves us with the responsibility to decide whether or not those kinds of outcomes are inimical to the public interest. And that is where we are going to have the frisson, the chafing between some of us who are more open-minded and liberal to the idea that whatever is possible, let's do it, let's go, let's roll. And there are others who think, well, there's some things that we just shouldn't explore at all. So let the contention begin, is my way of saying it.
Mark, do you want to give some comments?
Yeah, actually I have one, and that is, a number of years ago, there was this guy named Dick Cheney who was vice president of the United States, and he had a bad heart. And years after, he got a new heart and he got a pacemaker installed. And a part of the pacemaker is there's like a remote control thing that you can have in it, right? And he had that disabled. And frankly, when I have my heart transplant and my pacemaker, I want that thing disabled as well. Because basically hackers just will, right now.
Turn your heart off.
Hackers could turn my heart off, absolutely. So, but the bigger part is we have all this new technology, but the bigger part of this is security, much like the stuff that we were talking about earlier today. It's an afterthought. And as we go about this, security needs to be more prevalent. And frankly, it won't get that remote control thing enabled unless you get the security right.
Okay, we need to close this session, so I would like to give each one of you 10 seconds for your final comments. Starting with Albert. 10 comments.
Thank you all for participating here, and continue to participate in Global Forum.
It's been an honor being here, and please don't turn off my heart.
I'm not sure what to say after that. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be here. The internet is an enabler, so think about what opportunities it could bring, not just the technology, but what it can do for you.
Thank you very much. It's been really a pleasure. I say show up, enable, collaborate, collaborate, collaborate.
So, obrigada. I'm using the Portuguese now, so it's a big thank you for everyone. And as Jane said, think about enabling the technology for development. Look for yourselves and collaborate, and you can do a great job. This was a good start, and think about participating in all the other forums. You were always invited.
Okay, so let's give them a round of applause.